You know, how difficult is it for you, you know, with the kind of standards? You know, it's very much not like America where it is a clear cut yes or no answer. It's a yes, but then we're also going to select on our own.
Yeah.
But you know, and so you sit in that limbo until it is announced.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me, when I was growing up, my mom had been part of springboard diving and gymnastics, and she always felt that those two sports were, you know, somewhat based on, you know, someone's perception of you. And my mom didn't want me to be involved in a sport like that. She wanted me to be in a sport where it was cut and dry, you know, whoever crossed the finish line first won. And I think this is the first time that I felt like track and field isn't one of those sports, because obviously I did hit the qualifying standard, but still was not selected. And for an unknown reason to me, I still don't have a reason. So it definitely is hard, you know, now feeling like my sport isn't a cut and dry sport anymore, but there are other aspects that go into the selection process.
Do you remember, and I'm sure you do, what the feeling was like when they did release the team and your name wasn't on it after all your hard work?
Yeah, it was a little bit of disbelief. The team got announced, or I heard about the announcement of the team a couple of hours before I was set to race in the Monaco Diamond League. So I was overseas by myself, about to compete in one of the biggest races of my career. The field was loaded, and then I hear this bad news about not being included in the South African team. And so I really had a little bit of disbelief at first. I thought, you know, this can't be true. But I kind of pushed it aside and knew that I had a huge race in front of me and I needed to focus. I couldn't be emotional for that race, and decided that, you know, post-race I would then deal with it. I knew that I could still go through the appeal process. So I still thought, you know, after 48 hours, after the appeal process, surely they'll put me on the team. So at first there was a little bit of disbelief.
What, you know, when you look at the team, and how much emotions are generated just towards disappointment in the process, because you've done everything that you can do and something like this is no longer in your control?
Yeah, you know, there has been a lot of disappointment, a lot of frustration over the past 2 weeks. I felt like I've had a pretty good first year out of college. I've ran PRs in all of my events, and felt like I, you know, somewhat stepped it up this year, being a professional now. And then, you know, to get kind of told that I'm still not good enough, it was definitely hard, and definitely, you know, kind of sad and upsetting. But I've just tried to look at the positives out of all of this. You know, I love trying to inspire and give back to the kids in this area and the future athletes of the Razorbacks. And I always share the message with them, you know, if you put in the hard work and you do what you need to do, make the necessary sacrifices, that your dreams will come true. And I didn't want them now to point at me and say, hey, liar, you know, that's not the truth. But I wanted to now, you know, show them that sometimes there is going to be adversity and there is going to be an obstacle or a hurdle that's thrown in your way, but you can't let that stop you. You know, there's always another way. There's, you know, a way over or around the hurdle, and just got to make it add fuel to the fire for your, yeah.
Yeah, the politics, obviously, and the adversity that you went through, the biggest lesson and maybe biggest takeaway that you've taken away from it on a career basis, you know, not, you talk about these kids and being a role model, but as you move forward in your career, what's the biggest learning curve you've had to kind of learn and realize?
I think, you know, unfortunately, life isn't always fair, and nothing in life is a guarantee. You know, but that doesn't mean that you can throw in the towel. I think that there is always a reasoning behind everything, and I'm still not exactly sure of the reason behind me not being included in the South African team. And it's going to be pretty hard watching Worlds this weekend. On Saturday is the 10,000 meters, which I had obviously qualified in and, you know, had planned my season around competing in. But I'm just trying to, you know, see the positives in it and know that, you know, there's a greater, bigger reason behind this, and move forwards and and learn from it, and hopefully this never happens again.
Putting it into perspective for people, just so they can understand this, Jason and I were reading, but did you almost run too fast your qualifying time?
Yes.
Which is so weird to explain to people, but kind of break it down so they understand exactly the logistics and what went into what you did and why you're not. Why
okay. So the International Association of Athletics Federation sets a standard for all athletes to achieve or run faster to compete in the World Championships. South Africa went ahead and made a faster time. Unfortunately, I did not meet South Africa's faster time, so they did not include me in their team. Then South Africa had an appeal process. They unfortunately did not accept my appeal and did not add me to the team. So then the IAAF actually invites athletes to fill the field of every event, which means if 30 athletes hit the standard and were entered by their country, but they want 35 athletes in the team on the start line, then they go and invite 5 other athletes. Unfortunately, because I actually technically qualified for the 5 and the 10,000, but was not selected by my country, I then was not eligible for those spots. So what everyone was saying was that if I actually hadn't qualified, if I'd slowed down before finishing my races and actually had just missed the qualifying mark, I would have been selected, as there are other athletes from other countries that will be competing in the women's 5 and 10,000 meters that did not hit the standard like I did.
Which makes no sense.
Which makes no sense.
And that kind of leads into the fact that, you know, a lot of people might wonder why South Africa does things this way, unlike what the United States and a lot of other countries do, where if you are top 3, you're in. It's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Why do you think South Africa does this the way that they do?
I don't know. That's a very good question, and I think all of South Africa is wondering the same thing right now. I know that it's not financial, as the IAAF offered to pay for all expenses for a full South African team. So expenses is not, financial is not the reasoning behind it. They said that they wanted to reward excellence, which was kind of like a dagger in the back, saying that I wasn't good enough for their team, that they didn't believe in me, didn't think that I would get a medal for them, so they then didn't see any worth in taking me to London, which of course is upsetting, because as a young distance runner, you know, I know that experience is vital and key to performing well in the later years. Female distance runners only peak when they're closer to 30 and even past 30, and I'm 25, so I know I still have a couple of years left in my legs. So I know that experience right now is really important. Unfortunately, I won't be getting it this year. But luckily, my agents and sponsors believe in me enough that they've been able to get me into some really big races. So still gaining experience along the way.
Is there any, has there been any consideration, because you live here in Fayetteville and your husband is American, to trying to become an American citizen and try to qualify with the United States?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people are actually saying that, you know, it's time to switch over. So unfortunately, the process to become an American citizen is actually pretty long. It isn't as quick as one might think. So I should have my citizenship by the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, and I will definitely weigh up the pros and cons when the time comes, as if I should be running for America or South Africa. It would definitely be a hard decision. You know, South Africa still is my country, but I know that, you know, America definitely has a clean-cut process of selecting their athletes, whereas we can see South Africa, there's a little bit of you know, I don't want to say discrimination, but, you know, the process isn't quite clean cut. So, yeah, I'll just have to weigh the pros and cons when that time comes.
So what's next for you now that this ordeal
is
kind of in the books? It's this weekend. So the next step for you to move forward.
Yeah, so unfortunately I don't have any races set up right now, as there are no races for the next 2 weeks due to the World Championships. But I have planned my season around peaking right now, so I'm in great shape. I'm ready to run fast. So I plan to still run a couple more races before calling it a season. So I'll be planning my next upcoming races with my agent over the next 2 weeks. But I'm still excited to get out there and kind of prove people wrong and show that I am ready to run on the world stage.